Welcome back, folks. And today I'm going to energize you. I'm going to help you to energize yourself, is actually what I'm going to do. What I'm going to do is what every healer, every good healer actually does, and that's hold space. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about the concept of healing and let's talk about holding space. And these are the areas that I'm going to address today because I think they're really important on the journey. So, on my journey, I've come across a lot of spiritual bigotry. Who's the most powerful healer? Who has got the power? Who's got the energy? Now, whenever I hear this dynamic, I know that I'm dealing with somebody that's got more than their fair share of ego coming into this. Because on my healing journey, and since I learned these skills, and I first learned energy medicine back in 2002. So there you go. Over 20 years of practice and insight are going into what I'm telling you now, and qualification in numerous different things. And the only reason I tell you that is just to tell you that I do know what I'm talking about here, not because I've trained in their stuff. No, I don't want you to believe me because of that. It's because I've done it. I've just been helping people. I've been healing. I took my skills into hospitals. I didn't even tell anyone I was using it. I just used it. I worked with people's higher selves. I always got permission from their higher selves if I was going to work with anyone, and especially people that weren't conscious. So all of the healing I did was with the permission of working with people's higher selves, which is probably a step too far for this conversation. That's maybe another conversation for another day. But the bottom line is, I've got a lot of experience. I've worked with energy. I've worked with healing for a lot of years and lots of different styles and types. So Reiki is very different to vortex healing, for example. With Reiki, what you do, you channel through you. You become a channel and you switch on the tap and you facilitate energy coming through you. With techniques like vortex healing, it opens up a vortex within you. So the energy you channel comes from a vortex within. So the way that that system is set up, you create a vortex within your heart and you channel from that point. So two different distinctions about working with energy, but the point being that the different systems have different techniques, have different belief systems, have different mechanisms of actually working. And when push comes to shove, all of that is just, I'm not going to say it's irrelevant because if it works, it's great. But when people get caught in conversations about who's the best healer, who is the most powerful healer, anyone that would even say that they're the powerful healer, I would doubt them. The best healers I've met, the best teachers, the best mentors, the people with the best skill set, the most insight, they are the ones not bigging themselves up, not probably, they probably deserve to have more of an ego than they actually do, but they don't. The best healers are not going around bragging about it. They might be teaching stuff. You might be drawn towards them. They might be very talented at what they do. But I've seen so many um, ego standoffs in the world of healing, especially about what's the best technique. Even in Reiki, there's different types of Reiki that I didn't even realize until I got involved in Reiki. It's madness, absolute madness, folks. Different types. All I understood about healing was it's universal life force energy and we switch it on and off. We are a channel for it. So I'm a channel. I don't believe it's my energy that I'm giving anyone. I just believe that I get out of my own way and I set the intention to bring it through me. But more importantly with healing is that I am here to hold space to empower you to switch on your own healing skills. I'm just showing you how. And that's how healing works. So I'm not going to say that there's better teachers. There's certainly better teachers out there, but there's not more powerful energy healers. Anyone can do it. Anyone with the right intention. And in truth, I had some of the most profound outcomes right at the beginning of my journey. And I think that was just to show me that it worked. It was just a validation for me because I needed massive proof. And I had a medically trained mind and was very cynical about it. So I had to go through a massive shift myself when I started using energy to get incontrovertible evidence. And I had to be involved in situations which some would call miraculous. Certainly going against doctors' advice. Doctors, I've been in situations where doctors have told someone they're going to die, and then within a week, they're being released home, some to live many, many years beyond that. And I have seen that. I've been party to that. Did I create it? No, I held the space. People are either ready to heal themselves or they're not. It wasn't me that did it, but I was there to facilitate the process and to give an alternative belief pattern to people that had been written off by the traditional medical system. So it's really important distinction that as healers, we facilitate the healing of others. And some people are ready to be healed. Some people want to be healed. Some people, they really genuinely want the results. Other people don't. And there's a lot of people out there, folks, that say they want to be healed when they don't really. And this is a concept called secondary gain. This video's gone into a different zone now, because again, I'm just free flowing with this information. So let's talk about secondary gain. Not everybody wants to be healed. Some people say they do, but what they're in actual fact doing is that they've worked out that their problem gets them more energy than solving the problem ever would. Probably because they don't have the people skills or the personality type to sustain any sort of relationship on any sort of meaningful level if they didn't have a terrible problem. And the amount of people that will go and say, oh, I've got a terrible problem, something terrible's happened to me. And it'll be a problem that probably trumps everyone else in the room. It'll be something dreadful, folks. And much as this may cause controversy, but I have certainly seen this in action. People saying, you know, I was traumatized because I got raped. Now, rape is a terrible thing. I would never downplay somebody that had that experience. But what I am saying is that I've also known as many people that have had that experience. They've healed themselves, they've pushed through it, and they're now incredible healers as a result of their journey. Our wounds create our life. Diamonds form under pressure. The more trauma that you've had that you're able to get through, the more insight you'll have and the more connection with people that need your help beyond that. But there's some people that are looking to stay stuck. And it's not to downplay that they have had trauma and they have had terrible things happen. This is just to say that they are not looking for healing. They're just looking to have that trump card that they can play in any situation to pretty much say that my problems are bigger than yours. It's their way to win the energy war, to get the attention that they crave. And if you actually try and help them, they're not looking for answers. They're looking for scalps to say, my problems are so bad. Look at all these healers that tried and failed. That's called secondary gain, folks. Secondary gain is when people have more invested into the problem than they do the solution. And let me bring this alive in a little less controversial way. So obviously, I may have triggered some stuff bringing up things like rape. That's an extreme version. It's an extreme version. And I come from a background that thinks everything could be healed. If we're alive, we're here on a healing journey. But I'm also long enough in the tooth now to know that most people or some people aren't looking to be healed and learning to draw the difference, to set the boundaries, to identify the personalities, and certainly to identify narcissists along the way that are just looking on a completely different agenda. There's lots of sub questions of healing, and this all comes around. Can you identify someone that's genuinely looking to be healed? And how do you identify something like secondary gain that we're talking about here? So let me give you an example of when I first became aware of it before I got into the world of energy. So I used to work as a nurse, One of my earlier placements was in care of the elderly, and the care of the elderly were the 80 plus category. And the care of the elderly wards were usually filled full of old people that had had pneumonia, they'd fallen over at home, they'd had something minor wrong, they'd had to come in, they'd had to have antibiotics, they'd had to be treated. Now, a lot of these relatives, when I did their assessment, some of them had been living on their own for years and years and years leading up to this. And suddenly, one day, they come into the hospital. We're legally bound to call their next of kin. Some of the next of kin hadn't seen them for sometimes decades. I mean, the probably most extreme. I've called next of kin to their dear old aunt or uncle that hadn't seen them for over 20 years. And suddenly they all turn up at the hospital. And they're the most caring people in the planet, if you believe what they have to say. You see the very worst and best of human nature in a nursing setting, folks. And the very worst of human nature when next of kin that have been neglectful suddenly figure that their dearest and nearest uncle or aunt is suddenly in hospital ill. So all the relatives come in. They're in a nice warm place. They're getting attention every day from doctors, from physios, from nurses, from different people. They've gone from living on their own in a very cold environment sometimes because they can't afford to heat the place into a nice warm hospital ward surrounded by people with people to talk to, making friends with everyone around them, having all these wonderful things happen, free hot meals a day served to them. And then one day the doctor comes in and says, right, that's it, Adam. The good news is you're well enough to go home. And that's the moment that the person realizes they're going home to a lonely, cold house surrounded by nobody. And then they want to be ill because illness gets them back in the hospital. This dynamic is called secondary gain. It's when being ill has a bigger appeal than being well. And as healers, we need to understand this dynamic and we need to know how to identify it. And if you don't know how to identify it, then you're going to end up in a lot of pain along this way. My fellow healers, empaths, light workers, you must wake up to this dynamic. So healers are here to hold space. You're not necessarily here to get the results you think that you're going to get. Holding space is what healing is about. And I believe that we all have equally as much power when we get out of our way and allow healing to come through us. And anyone that tells you that they're a more powerful healer than anyone else, well, even if they are, their ego's running out of control and they're probably not someone you want to be working with. Because in my experience, the most powerful healers don't go around telling people that they are. And in the world of healing, of channeling, of creating space, I believe that we all have equal ability to do so. You have equal ability to heal as I do. 90% of this is believing it's possible. 10% is learning techniques. There you go. I've just summarized over 20 years of my path into healing. And that's preceded by another 10 years of working frontline nursing before I got to that. So that's over 30 years in health and well-being, 20 plus in energy work and energy medicine. So you don't have to believe me. I don't really care whether you do or you don't. I'm just here to give you my opinion in the hope that it will help you to get insight, to wake up to the people that you're trying to heal that are not there to be healed, and to own the talent that you have. So there you go, folks. That is my message for you today. May you go and hold space. May you go and encourage people to wake up to their own healing potential. And may you go and learn to identify the people that say that they want your help, but they really don't. If you learn these powers, critical awareness, proper assessment, then your healing journey will be amplified and it will save you a hell of a lot of pain. And if you're first finding this video and you're not liked and subscribed to the channel, then please like this video, please subscribe to the channel, and I will give you more content to help you, my fellow healer, on your journey to avoid the many mistakes that I have made over this very long journey from somebody that's probably slightly longer in the tooth than most people on this little path.